Hello everybody, this is Money Mom. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you guys about a very important topic. 5 signs that tell you you're not making enough money. Let's get right into it. I know many times on these frugal channels they're talking about cutting expenses and living more frugally. That's fabulous, but there are times where you cannot cut anymore. And I was reading some statistics. Over 50% of Americans couldn't even come up with $400 for an emergency, and 65% of Americans have no idea how much they're spending. So let's talk a little bit about that today. I'm going to go over the 5 signs where you're not making enough money. The first one is you run out of money before the end of the month and you don't have enough to cover your expenses, your basic bills, your 4 walls. Example, you're paying Peter to pay Paul. You've heard that statement before, right? And I've heard that many times where you're having to make phone calls. Hey, can you give me a little extension? Or maybe they turn off your power or you get something canceled, where you're having to juggle things. That's where you know you're not making enough. Number 2, you're depending on credit cards for all sorts of expenses and emergencies and things that even you want that come up. You depend too much on credit cards. Number 3, there's nothing else you can cut back out of your budget. I know I've mentioned this before. Yes, I think we can all go bare bones. I mean, even me, I've cut so much out of my budget over the last 4 years, I could cut out even more. But, for example, if I only made $1,200 a month, that is not enough to cover our basic expenses. Unless I moved somewhere and made some other changes, wouldn't be enough to cover my expenses to where we currently live in the DFW or Dallas, Texas area. So sometimes if you're only making a certain amount, and I've known of some folks that maybe they used to make, say, $60,000 and they lost that job and then they went down to making $40,000 and it was not enough money for their current expenses. Yes, you can cut back on your expenses, but sometimes even if you cut back on everything, it's still not enough and you need to bring in more income. So basically, number 3 is when there is just nothing else that you can cut out. Number 4, you don't have any kind of emergency fund or any kind of cushion that you can dig into if something happens. And number 5, last but not least, you are constantly stressed out about money and you're worried. And I actually know of some folks in my world over the years that are just constantly worried about money. And I know for myself, just having an emergency fund, it does give me a peace of mind. We don't always know what's going to happen today or tomorrow, and there may be some things that happen that are very unexpected that are stressful, even with an emergency fund. So I do think, though, that if someone is not making enough money, yes, it's great to go on a tighter budget, but there may be some times to reassess where you may want to think about finding ways to bring extra money. And that's why I think so many people nowadays are entrepreneurs or doing all sorts of side hustles. And I've also known of folks that are like, it's just too expensive where I live. They move out of maybe one state and they move to maybe an area to a smaller town in another state, and they're saving so much more money. So I think that we can make changes if we want to, but I also think that, yes, it's great to live on a tight budget if you can, but there are times where it's so tight that if something were to happen, we don't have money for, like I said, those emergencies or juggling bills. Let me know what you guys think. Let me ask you this question. What would you say, besides the ones that I gave, what would be some other signs you think somebody is not bringing in enough money to cover expenses and some small emergencies? What would you say about that? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I value each and every one of you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you on tomorrow morning's video. Bye-bye.